Have you ever wondered how many battles you could have avoided if you had simply kept quiet? How many storms were stirred not by your enemies, but by your overexposure? Some of you are bleeding from wounds you handed out by speaking too soon, trusting too quickly, and revealing too much. Every time you opened your heart to the wrong person, you gave them the weapon they now use to control your peace. Not everyone who listens is loyal. Not everyone who claps is clean. There are eyes watching not to support, but to sabotage. And some of the worst betrayals don't come from the people you kept at a distance, but from the ones you let in too close. You're not broken. You're just being taught the holy art of silence. And until you master it, you will keep leaking power into hands that were never meant to hold you. They smiled at you, didn't they? They clapped when you rose. They laughed at your jokes, nodded at your dreams, and pretended they cared. But the moment you turned your back, they took your story, your dreams, your fears, your truth, and twisted it into a weapon aimed right at your soul. Let me ask you something deep. How many parts of yourself have you given away to people who only showed up to study your weakness? How much of your spirit have you left wide open to hearts that never intended to protect it? You see, there is a silence in the world that no one teaches you to value, a hidden power in keeping parts of yourself sacred. When you speak too freely, when you expose your scars to those who have never bled with you, you hand them a map to destroy you. And in today's world where everyone wants to be seen, to be known, to be followed, we are forgetting the priceless gift of mystery, of restraint, of privacy. Do not let people know too much about you. Because the truth is, not every ear that hears your story is meant to hold it. Not every heart that listens is pure. And not every smile is innocent. There's a quiet strength in being misunderstood, a sacred fire in being underestimated. When they don't know your next move, they can't block it. When they don't know your pain, they can't mock it. And when they don't know your dreams, they can't curse them. We live in an age where people are addicted to sharing their goals, their trauma, their next step. They think visibility equals victory. But let me tell you, some victories are only won in silence. Some healing only happens when no one is watching. And some of your greatest transformations will occur in the shadows, where no applause is heard, where no eyes are fixed, and where no one is around to meddle with your process. Let this truth settle deep into your bones. What people don't know, they can't ruin. There's wisdom in silence, power in mystery, and protection in privacy. The deepest rivers run silently. The strongest trees grow underground before they ever break the surface. Why? Because growth, real growth, requires hiddenness, a season of being unknown, unseen, undisturbed, and yet we are tempted to expose our roots before we are ready. We are tempted to show people the blueprint of our soul before we've even finished building it. That's how many fall, not because they were weak, but because they trusted too quickly, too loudly. Listen to me. Your story is not public property. Your journey is not an open book for the wrong eyes. Your healing is not for the entertainment of spectators. There are people who don't want you to win, and the more they know, the better they can plot. They smile in your face, yes, but they collect your words like arrows, waiting for the right moment to strike. They feed on your honesty, then twist it into betrayal. That's why your silence will sometimes be your greatest defense. That's why learning to smile without speaking, to nod without revealing, to walk without explaining is a divine kind of strength. Not everyone deserves a seat at the table of your vulnerability. Some of you are bleeding because you gave someone the knife. You opened your soul, hoping they'd handle it with care, but instead they labeled you, judged you, whispered about you, and now you walk around wounded, wondering why peace is hard to find. It's because you gave access too soon. You showed the construction site before the masterpiece was ready. There's a reason the most powerful people in this world are also the most discreet. The ones who make the greatest impact are the ones who speak with purpose, not for attention. They move in silence. They protect their energy. They choose their listeners carefully. And most of all, they understand that sacred things lose power when spoken carelessly. You want to protect your destiny? Then start protecting your story. Guard your dreams like treasure. Speak your truth only to those who have earned the right to hear it. Because once your story enters the wrong hands, it no longer belongs to you. It becomes gossip. It becomes entertainment. Your silence is not weakness. It is wisdom wrapped in restraint. It is clarity wrapped in discipline. They say you're mysterious? Good. That's your shield. They say you're hard to read? Excellent. That's your protection. They say you don't open up easily? Perfect. That's your survival. Because here's what they won't tell you. The more you are known, the easier it is to be manipulated. The more you are seen, the more you become a target. The louder your voice, the clearer your vulnerability becomes. And let's be honest, some people don't want to understand you, they just want to collect information. They pretend to care while secretly taking notes. They praise your strength to gain your trust, only to later attack your softness. So what do? You learn, you rise. You build sacred walls, not to keep love out, but to keep destruction out. You become selective, not cold, not distant, but discerning. You stop broadcasting your journey to those who were never meant to walk with you. The truth is, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your silence. You don't need to justify your privacy. You don't have to share your pain to prove you've been through something. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to keep moving in silence while they wonder how you keep rising. Let them wonder, let them guess, let them misunderstand you if they must, because the ones who truly care won't need details to support you. And the ones who demand your secrets never had your best interest anyway. There's power in the unseen. There's victory in the unspoken. There's healing in the quiet. Some of you are so close to your breakthrough, but you keep announcing it too early. You keep revealing your process to people who haven't prayed for your progress. You keep opening your wounds to hands that haven't earned the right to touch them. And in doing so, you delay the very blessing that was meant to find you in solitude. Be wise, be still, be intentional. Let your results speak. Let your actions testify. Let your peace be your answer. And above all, never forget, your silence carries a wisdom that noise will never understand. They will ask you, why are you so quiet? But they won't understand that silence is strength, not absence. When you speak less, you hear more. You discern their motives, their hearts, and their spirits. You start to see through the smiles, through the praise, through the handshakes that hide hidden daggers. Speaking too much is how you invite confusion, how you give away your power. The tongue was never meant to carry the full weight of your destiny. And the soul, the soul must be protected like treasure, not paraded like trinkets. Some people only stay close so they can study you. They don't love you, they monitor you. They smile not because they care, but because they are waiting for the moment they can say, I knew it would fall apart. You gave them access and they used it to gather information, not to offer support. They pretended to listen, but deep down they were building reports against you. And every detail you gave them became ammunition in the wrong hands. So now, let wisdom close the door. Your emotions kept swinging open. You were never meant to explain your journey to those who haven't walked through your wilderness. They don't understand your fire because they've never burned for a purpose. They don't see your sacrifice, only your outcome. And what they envy, they attack. What they can't grasp, they try to label. That's why your silence must become your defense. Don't share your battles with those who celebrate when you bleed. Some people don't want to see you healed. They want to see you helpless. And the moment you begin to open up to the wrong soul, you give them keys to doors they were never meant to enter. Not every cry deserves an echo. Not every story needs a listener. Some victories were birthed in such deep pain, they are sacred and must be covered in silence, not clapped for by strangers. Let your growth offend those who thought they had you figured out. Let your silence confuse those who once lived off your vulnerability. Let your next chapter be written without their fingerprints all over the pages. You don't owe updates to anyone who only showed up for the gossip. You don't owe explanations to those who wouldn't stand with you in your darkest hour. Real growth happens when you choose peace over proving a point, when you decide to be whole, not heard. And understand this, your privacy is your power. When they don't know your next step, they can't sabotage it. When they can't predict your rhythm, they can't block your melody. You're not being distant. You're becoming dangerous. You're not hiding. You're honing. The less noise you make, the more weight your presence carries. The more still you become, the more unshakable you are. Silence sharpens your vision. It guards your oil. It protects your crown. There is power in moving in mystery. There is strength in becoming the storm they never saw coming. Some of the most powerful moves are made in quiet rooms. Some of the greatest victories come when no one is watching. You don't need a stage to grow. You don't need a crowd to evolve. You just need space, sacred space, where your soul can breathe without judgment and your heart can unfold without exploitation. Keep your sanctuary clean. Don't turn your process into a public performance. And to those who misunderstood your silence, let them. You are not required to unpack your soul in rooms that can't handle your truth. You don't need to fix their perception of you. You are not cold. You are cautious. You are not rude. You are refined. You are not distant. You are deep. You simply learned that every time you spoke your truth too soon, it came back twisted. Every time you shared your pain too openly, it came back weaponized. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. A lion doesn't roar. At every moment, it walks with authority. It moves with intent. So should you. Walk like you carry something valuable. Move like you know your soul is not up for debate. Hold your peace with dignity. Hold your silence with purpose, because the loudest person in the room is often the weakest. But the quiet one, the one watching, waiting, praying, that one is dangerous. That one is prepared. Let your life be the answer to the questions they ask about you. Let your results silence the whispers. Let your elevation cancel the rumors. You don't need to argue your worth. Your progress will speak louder than their doubt. Your endurance will scream louder than their lies. You've got nothing to prove. When you stay silent long enough, you become undeniable. When you move in silence long enough, you become unstoppable. They can't destroy what they can't detect. Do not cast your pearls before those who only know how to trample. Don't give your dreams to those who never had the courage to chase their own. Don't open your chest to hands that only know how to steal. You are not obligated to hand your purpose over to people who weren't sent to protect it. Some things are too valuable to be discussed casually. Some things are too holy to be placed in the mouths of those who don't honor them. If you're feeling a tug to step back, to pull away, to retreat into stillness, it's not you being antisocial, it's you being aligned. You are being called into a place of discernment where the noise stops and the truth rises, where you shed the need to be seen and start craving only what is real, where popularity dies and peace becomes king. That place is not lonely, it is sacred. It is not empty, it is full of clarity. So, guard your mind like a garden. Protect your spirit like a flame. Do not let every hand touch what was born in sacred fire. Because your process is not entertainment, your pain is not public property, and your growth is not up for public vote. Walk quietly, live intentionally, and let your silence preach louder than any speech ever could. There comes a moment in your life when silence becomes your strategy, not your weakness. You stop answering every question. You stop defending every decision. You stop trying to explain your soul to people who were never meant to understand it. This is not pride. This is not bitterness. This is wisdom. It is the wisdom that says, I don't owe my truth to every listening ear. You don't plant rare seeds in shallow soil. You protect them. You bury them deep. Because you know what's growing is too sacred to be disturbed by casual conversation. The deeper you go, the more private you become, because elevation is lonely. The higher the eagle flies, the fewer birds it sees. And so it is with you. As you rise into the fullness of who you are, you start to see the difference between connection and access. Just because someone is close doesn't mean they're qualified. Just because someone listens doesn't mean they're loyal. You learn to listen more and speak less, to observe quietly instead of reacting loudly. Silence becomes your armor, and distance becomes your filter. The danger in oversharing is not just exposure, it's distortion. The more you reveal, the more room others have to rewrite your truth in their words. They take pieces of your story, twist them, stretch them, turn them into something you never said. You gave them facts, but they returned fiction. You offered sincerity, but they turned it into suspicion. And suddenly your transparency becomes your trial. That's why silence is more than protection, it's preservation. It is how you guard the purity of your path. Even your victories aren't meant for everyone. Some people don't celebrate your growth, they resent it. They see your healing as a threat. They see your elevation as an offense. Because every step forward you take reminds them of the steps they never had the courage to take. And so the moment you shine, they scramble to dim you. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you dared to move beyond their reach. In silence, you rise. In silence, you soar. In silence, you break every ceiling they built for you. There's a quiet strength in restraint, a holy kind of fire that burns without noise. Some of the most powerful moves are made without announcement. The most radical transformations happen in secret. The world doesn't need to see your cocoon to respect your wings. You don't need to broadcast your process to prove your progress. The proof is in your peace. The evidence is in your elevation. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them talk, but don't let them in. You must learn to speak in seasons. Every truth has a time, every vision has a vault, and until the right moment comes, you must guard your revelation like a sword, because premature exposure leads to premature attack. Some dreams die, not because they lacked potential, but because they were shared too early with the wrong audience. You need wisdom to know what to reveal and what to conceal, what to water with words and what to seal with silence. Not everyone deserves front row seats to your becoming. When you live with intention, you learn that not every friend is a confidant, not every voice is safe. Some people walk with you, but their spirit does not align with your destiny. They come with questions, but they don't come with love. They smile, but their heart is far from you. They ask, not because they care, but because they want to collect. You must learn to discern, to recognize the difference between curiosity and covenant, between interest and investment, between presence and purpose. There are people who feed off your vulnerability. They don't want your success, they want your story so they can twist it. They don't want healing for you, they want history on you. That's why you feel that check in your spirit every time you open your mouth too wide. That's why something inside you tightens when you start to share what was meant to stay sacred. That's not fear, that's protection. That's your soul crying out for shelter. And you must honor that cry even when others don't understand it. You are not called to be a public diary. You are not created to be everyone's open book. There is a power that comes when you realize you don't have to explain, don't have to defend, don't have to correct. Let them misjudge you. Let them misquote you. Let them misread your silence. Because in the end, it is not their opinion that shapes your destiny. It is your endurance, your discipline, and your decision to stay silent until the right time. The strongest warriors move with mystery. The wisest souls walk with stillness. They are not loud. They are not reckless. They are not eager to be seen. They carry their fire within, not to impress the world, but to illuminate their path. And when they speak, it shakes the room. Not because they spoke often, but because they waited until the words were weighty. That is the kind of power your silence carries, the kind that changes the atmosphere without raising its voice. There's a sacredness to solitude that the noisy world cannot comprehend. When you choose to walk quietly, you start to hear the whispers your distractions once drowned out. You no longer need the applause to feel validated. You no longer need confirmation to feel secure. Your confidence begins to grow from within. It is no longer built on compliments, it is rooted in clarity. When your soul becomes still, your path becomes clear. And in that stillness, you realize not everyone needs to walk with you. Not everyone is meant to hear you. They may call you secretive, let them. They may say you've changed, let them. Because what they don't understand is that growth often looks like silence. Transformation often sounds like absence. Maturity doesn't always announce itself with noise. It humbles itself into quietness. You're not hiding, you're becoming. You're not distant, you're discerning. What used to require explanation now only requires restraint. And in that restraint, you're being refined into someone they never expected. Guarding your story isn't arrogance, it's alignment. Not everything is meant to be shared. Not every wound needs to be witnessed. Some healing is done in the dark so that when you emerge, there are no fingerprints on your restoration. You owe no one the chapter you're still writing. Some lessons are so sacred they must be locked in silence until they have fully bloomed. And when they do, the fruit will speak louder than your words ever could. There's a reason why the most precious things are hidden. Diamonds are buried deep. Gold must be mined, and pearls are found in the darkest parts of the ocean. Your worth was never meant to be put on display for careless hands. Some people will mishandle you simply because they were never trained to honor value. Don't make your life a museum for critics. Make it a temple for truth. Let the sacred parts of your story be known only to those who carry reverence, not curiosity. You were not designed to live exposed. You were meant to live elevated, and elevation often requires insulation. There are layers to your destiny that require covering, because when you're building something eternal, you don't leave the foundation open to the elements. You protect it. You cover it. You speak only when it strengthens, not when it satisfies. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to speak silent. Silence isn't weakness. It's a strategy of the strong. The most powerful breakthroughs come not when you tell the world your plan, but when you surprise them with the fruit. Let your results roar where your words once whispered. Let your peace be the loudest sermon you ever preach. They may doubt you now, but one day they'll study how you endured. They'll wonder how you rose. They'll ask how you stayed grounded when the winds blew hard, and they won't realize the answer was always in your silence. And don't be surprised when your silence makes others uncomfortable. Some people can only feel powerful when they know your every move, but the moment you become quiet, they panic. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your peace threatens their control. Your restraint shakes their assumptions. They don't know how to handle someone who no longer seeks validation. They don't know what to do with someone who no longer explains themselves. And that is your greatest strength. Mystery born of maturity. When you rise without noise, you confuse the ones who watched for your failure. They waited for you to fall, but you disappeared into growth. You buried yourself in becoming. And now when they see you again, they won't recognize the version of you that silence built. They'll say you changed, but no, you were simply rebuilt in secret. You were healed without their permission. You were strengthened without their applause. That's the power of sacred privacy. Let them see the fruit, not the fight. Let them witness the glow, not the grinding. The world doesn't need to know every storm you've weathered. It needs to feel the strength you gained from it. Some things were never meant for public consumption. They were meant to mold you, not market you. There are parts of your process that carry so much power, they must be guarded in silence until the season is right. When it is, the unveiling will need no words. Your silence is your sanctuary. Your restraint is your fortress. Do not feel guilt for guarding your peace. Do not apologize for protecting your heart. You are not obligated to entertain every question or respond to every doubt. Some things are better left unsaid, not because they're untrue, but because they're too powerful to be misunderstood. And what they don't understand, they'll try to label. What they can't define, they'll try to destroy. That is why silence is not avoidance. It is wisdom walking. There is a kind of silence that doesn't mean defeat, but discernment. When your spirit begins to mature, you stop reacting to everything. You stop answering every whisper behind your back. You no longer need to clear your name in rooms filled with small minds. You learn to rise above it all, not out of pride, but out of purpose. You are not here to fight every battle. You are not here to explain every choice. You are here to finish the work within you. And some work must be done in silence, undisturbed by the noise of opinions. Sometimes protection comes in the form of obscurity. Not being known is not the same as being forgotten. Being quiet is not the same as being lost. There is power in being hidden while you grow. The world might overlook you, but the fire inside you keeps burning. The vision keeps unfolding. And when the time is right, what you've built in private will speak for itself. The unseen preparation will lead to undeniable impact. And those who doubted you will stand stunned, not by your explanation, but by your emergence. You must remember, some people are not interested in the truth about you. They are only interested in the version they can control. They seek access, not for connection, but for leverage. They ask questions, not to understand you, but to use you. That's why you must be careful who you give the keys of your heart to. Some hands only knock on your door to peek into your peace, and once they enter, they leave the place colder than they found it. Guard the door. Guard the details. Guard the treasure within you like your future depends on it, because it does. Many fall, not because they were weak, but because they were too open with the wrong people. They trusted too easily. They shared too soon. And their honesty became a weapon used against them. Not everyone deserves your full story. Some people can only handle the title, not the testimony. Some can sit in your presence but not carry your pain. You must learn to be whole without being wide open. There is power in holding back. There is freedom in being full and yet unexposed. When your life becomes too public, it becomes too polluted. When your heart becomes too open, it becomes too wounded. You must stop bleeding in front of people who aren't qualified to help you heal. You must stop casting your pearls before those who trample them. Even your vulnerability must be guarded. Your emotions are not for display. Your dreams are not for debate. Some things are too holy to be handed out carelessly. Let your silence be your strength. Let your privacy be your peace. The truth is, the more people know, the more they feel entitled to comment. And the more they comment, the more they distort, until one day you no longer recognize your own story. It has been twisted by so many mouths that you forget what the original truth sounded like. That's why wisdom says, hold it close. Let it grow in quiet. Because what is born in silence cannot be killed by noise. What is nurtured in secrecy cannot be stolen by slander. Some truths are meant to be buried deep until the world is ready to see the harvest. And never forget, when you stop telling them everything, they may walk away. But let them. If your silence offends them, they were never for you. If your privacy bothers them, they were never loyal to you. People who truly care don't need all your secrets to love you. They don't demand explanations. They offer presence. They don't require access. They bring respect. So if your silence causes them to leave, let them go. What you lose in people, you gain in peace. Silence is not just about keeping secrets. It's about keeping sacred what others have treated as common. When you hold something sacred, you don't share it with just anyone. You guard it, you protect it, you nurture it, because you know it carries weight, power, and purpose. Your life, your vision, your calling, they are sacred, and they must be handled with reverence, not recklessness. Your silence, therefore, is not emptiness. It is honor. It is the sound of someone who knows their value. And when the time comes to speak, your voice will carry a weight that years of silence built. Your words will carry a fire that quiet suffering forged. Your presence will have authority, not because you were loud, but because you were loyal to your process. You didn't announce every pain. You didn't publicize every prayer. You carried your truth quietly until it became undeniable, and that kind of strength cannot be faked. It cannot be copied. It can only be forged in the secret place. Do not fear being misunderstood. Do not be afraid of walking alone. Sometimes silence isolates you, but it also sanctifies you. It removes the noise, the drama, the distractions. It teaches you how to stand, how to listen, how to discern, and most importantly, it teaches you how to trust yourself again. The silence becomes your teacher, your shield, your sanctuary. In it, you are rebuilt, refined, made ready for a future so glorious it cannot be shared prematurely. Some of the greatest pain you will ever feel in life will come from giving access to people who never deserved the invitation. You welcomed them in, thinking they'd honor what they saw, but instead they violated what was sacred. They took your openness as opportunity, not as trust. And that betrayal didn't just hurt, it taught. It taught you that not every smile is sincere, that not every friend is forever, that not every heart that claps for you is loyal when the crowd fades. Pain becomes a teacher when pride finally lets it. So now you walk differently, not bitter, but wiser, not closed off, but selective. You don't lock your heart, you protect it. You don't hide your life, you preserve it. There's a difference between being guarded and being grounded. You've been through too much to be careless now. You've seen what happens when you speak too soon, trust too quick, expose too much. The lesson has settled deep. Not everyone needs to know. Some things are for you in the quiet place alone. You must understand, the more valuable you become, the more invisible you must be. Not because you are afraid, but because you are aware. Awareness is power. Awareness teaches you that the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. That wisdom doesn't scream, it waits. It watches. It weighs every word before releasing it. You are not here to prove yourself. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to fulfill a calling that requires silence to survive. Your next level will demand a new discipline. The higher you go, the fewer people can go with you. The more focused you become, the less you can afford distractions. And do not be deceived. Sometimes distractions come dressed as support. Sometimes the loudest applause comes from the ones who secretly want to replace you. So keep quiet while you build. Grow in the dark. Expand in silence. Work in the shadows and let your fruit shine in the light. Because what is built in secret cannot be shaken in public. There is an invisible war being fought over your peace. And the moment you begin to protect it, you'll feel resistance, not from your enemies, but from familiar faces who thrived on your access. People will grow uncomfortable when they can no longer read you. They'll say, "You've changed." Yes, you have, and thank God you did, because the old version of you was too available, too exposed, too vulnerable to those who only came to take. You have learned peace is not a gift from the world. It's a wall you build brick by brick with every no, every boundary, every silence. Do not be afraid of isolation. It is in isolation that vision becomes clear. It is in solitude that purpose is purified. You don't find your destiny in crowds. You find it in consecration. There is a version of you that can only be born in silence. The noise around you must die for the voice within you to rise. You are not being abandoned. You are being aligned. You are not being forgotten. You are being fortified. What looks like loneliness is actually preparation. What feels like separation is actually preservation. You were not made for popularity. You were made for purpose, and purpose demands privacy. You are not meant to dance for the approval of many. You are meant to stand for the truth, even if it means standing alone. You were called to be different, and difference doesn't need an audience. It needs courage. It needs conviction. It needs a refusal to compromise even when everyone around you is living loudly and recklessly. Sometimes silence is your loudest protest against a world obsessed with attention. Let them wonder, let them guess, let them fill in the blanks with their assumptions. That is no longer your burden to carry. You're not responsible for correcting every lie, clarifying every rumor, defending every decision. You've graduated from needing to be understood. You're walking in a new level now, a level where peace is more important than approval, and truth is more powerful than explanation. There is liberty in not having to explain your growth to people committed to your past. Silence has become your sword. Privacy has become your shield. You don't need to tell them what you're doing. You don't need to broadcast your blessings. Just keep walking, keep building, keep becoming, and one day your life will shout what your mouth never had to say. One day they will see the evidence, and no explanation will be needed. Your fruit will silence every critic. Your peace will rebuke every accuser, and your transformation will humble every voice that once tried to label you. See, when you begin to keep things to yourself, you're not becoming secretive, you're becoming strategic. There's a difference between hiding out of fear and guarding out of wisdom. You're not shutting people out, you're shutting drama down. You're not running away from connection, you're choosing consecration. When people can't figure you out, they can't control you. And that's what many fear, not your failure, but your freedom. They fear the moment you stop depending on their validation and start depending on your inner compass. Some people only stayed in your life because they knew too much about you. They didn't love you. They loved the leverage. They were not inspired by you. They were informed about you. So they stayed close, not out of loyalty, but out of strategy. The moment you stop feeding them information, they starve. The moment you close the door to your personal world, they lose power. And that is why silence is dangerous. It breaks the chains of manipulation. It removes the ability for others to weaponize your words and emotions against you. Let me tell you something powerful. Not everything is meant to be shared, because not everyone can handle your truth. Some people are not equipped to carry the weight of your wounds, your victories, your dreams, or your process. They will either envy it, exploit it, or misunderstand it, and that's why sacred things must remain sacred. The deepest parts of your heart must be handled with gloves, not gossip. The sacred soil of your soul cannot be trampled by careless feet. Guard it, respect it, protect it, because if you don't, no one else will. There is a time to speak and a time to stay silent, a time to reveal and a time to conceal. Too many people lose the power of their anointing because they're addicted to being seen. They confuse visibility with value, but there is something holy about being hidden. There is something powerful about moving quietly, healing quietly, rising quietly, until your life begins to thunder without you ever saying a word. You don't need to announce what you're doing when the results will do the talking, and when you walk in that truth, your confidence stops being loud. It becomes unshakable. You don't need to tell everyone where you're going. You don't need to explain why you've changed. You don't need to justify the silence. The transformation you're experiencing is between you and destiny. It is not for public opinion. It is not for casual conversation. What you're carrying is not light, it is legacy. And legacy isn't shaped by noise. It's forged in stillness, in obedience, in discipline. So don't apologize for being quiet. Don't apologize for disappearing for a while. Growth isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like isolation, but inside the roots are growing deep. When you become disciplined in silence, your discernment sharpens. You start seeing people for who they really are, not who they pretended to be when they had access. You begin to recognize energy that drains versus energy that ignites. You realize that not every connection is a covenant. And when your spirit matures to that level, you no longer feel obligated to keep everyone updated. You no longer feel the need to explain why you've outgrown certain circles. You realize that clarity is often found in subtraction, not addition. And when subtraction comes, when the familiar leaves, when the comfortable fades, you do not panic, you praise. You understand that anything removed from your life was never meant to stay in the next chapter. If people fall off when your mouth closes, they were only attached to the access. If they loved you only when you were weak and transparent, they were never aligned with your strength. True connections don't demand exposure, they respect discretion. They don't need updates. They trust your journey. So walk forward with your mouth guarded and your heart guarded even more, because your words carry weight now. Your decisions are no longer random. They are kingdom. What you say, what you share, what you post, what you confide, it either builds your future or burdens it. You've come too far to sabotage your next step with careless talk. You've seen too much to throw away wisdom for temporary connection. This is the hour to be wise, not popular. To be protected, not exposed. To be whole, not widely understood. Let your life be the mystery that unfolds in divine timing. Let your peace be the shield that blocks out the chaos. Let your silence be the proof that you're no longer desperate to be known, you're now driven to become. And in that becoming, you will lose people who loved your weakness but feared your strength. That is the cost of rising. That is the price of maturity. But oh, what beauty awaits you on the other side of discipline. On the other side of privacy, on the other side of letting go of the need to be seen and grabbing hold of the need to be whole. And when your silence becomes your sanctuary, your soul finds a deeper kind of rest, a peace that doesn't depend on understanding, a confidence that doesn't rely on applause. You begin to realize that your greatest victories are not for show, they're for strengthening. Every tear you cried in secret, every sleepless night where you chose to stay still rather than shout, those were not wasted moments. Those were holy moments. The fire that didn't break you was forming you. The silence that didn't isolate you was preparing you. There is a sacred power in what's kept between you and your purpose. Some people cannot walk where you are going because they only knew the version of you that was always accessible. They were familiar with your weakness, but not ready for your wisdom. They were drawn to your vulnerability, but intimidated by your elevation. And so, when you rise in silence, they call it pride. When you stop oversharing, they call it coldness. But it is not pride, it is not arrogance. It is preservation, it is growth. You are no longer addicted to being understood. You are committed to being aligned. And alignment often requires secrecy. Too many people lose themselves trying to keep others comfortable. They reveal every step, every thought, every struggle, hoping for sympathy or support. But here's the truth. Some people only cheer for you when you're small. Some only listen so they can twist your words later. And some only stay close so they can sabotage what you're building. That's why silence is not only golden, it's a sword. It cuts through confusion, exposes intentions, and creates a boundary that protects your soul. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your personal progress. Your destiny is not a democracy. Your next chapter doesn't need the approval of people who never saw the vision in the first place. When you share prematurely, you risk planting seeds in soil that can grow them. You risk offering pearls to hands that would rather trample them than treasure them. And so you learn through pain and through wisdom that it is better to build quietly than to broadcast blindly. Your life is not a public project. Your transformation is not an open vote. What you're becoming requires focus, not feedback. In that sacred quiet, you hear something you couldn't hear before, the sound of your own spirit rising. You hear clarity in the stillness, direction in the silence, instruction in the calm. And what a beautiful sound it is when your soul no longer begs for noise to feel alive. You stop announcing the next move. You stop sharing every dream, not because you're hiding in fear, but because you're rising in wisdom. So you're beginning to understand the power of restraint, the authority of stillness, the strength in not reacting to every question, every comment, every demand. Your silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is mastery. It is maturity. A mature spirit knows that not every battle needs a response. Not every insult needs an answer. And not every opportunity needs to be publicized. Some blessings are best protected in the cocoon of privacy. Some doors open only when you're quiet enough to hear the whisper of direction. You can't hear destiny's knock when you're distracted by the crowd's chatter. So you withdraw, not in bitterness, but in boldness. You step back, not to isolate, but to insulate your mind from voices that only echo confusion. The truth is, people fear what they can't predict. They fear your silence because they can no longer calculate your next step. But don't be shaken. You are not created to be predictable. You are created to be powerful. And true power doesn't have to shout. It simply moves, it flows, it builds in silence and strikes in strength. So when they ask what happened to you, tell them nothing happened. You just grew. You stopped needing to be seen to feel secure. You stopped needing to be heard to know your value. You found the hidden path, the quiet way, the narrow road that leads to greatness. There's a difference between privacy and isolation. Privacy is intentional. Isolation is reactional. One is chosen, the other is forced. And what you are doing now is choosing to live deliberately, choosing to speak with purpose, choosing to walk with wisdom. The fewer people who know your inner life, the fewer distractions you'll face, the fewer doors you'll need to keep locked, the fewer explanations you'll have to offer. Because the truth is, not everyone is qualified to understand the weight you carry, and it is not your job to train them. It is your job to protect it. And now, as this word settles in your spirit, let this truth take root like an unshakable tree planted by rivers of wisdom. You do not owe the world access to every corner of your soul. You do not have to explain your silence, justify your growth, or defend your boundaries. There is great honor in being unknown, unbothered, and unshaken. The deepest rivers flow silently. The strongest warriors move without a crowd. And the most powerful transformations happen in hidden places, far from the noise, far from the stage, far from the reach of those who only want to consume, not understand. You've been called to walk a path where peace comes from privacy, where clarity is protected in stillness, and where the weight of your calling is too precious to place in unworthy hands. Let them wonder, let them question, let them talk, but you stay steady. You keep building in silence. You keep healing in private. You keep walking in power, because not everyone needs to know your plans, your pain, your progress. The less they know, the less they can interrupt what heaven is preparing in you. So guard your gates, protect your mind, nurture your spirit, and remember this always: you were never meant to be fully understood by those who were never meant to carry your vision. When you learn to value silence, you begin to understand the language of power. When you learn to keep secrets, you begin to hear the whispers of destiny. And when you walk in quiet strength, no one can take from you what they never even knew you had. This is not fear, this is wisdom, this is not hiding, this is protection. You're not going backwards, you're going deeper. And in that sacred depth, something unstoppable is rising within you.